Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for the second day of the Precious Metals and Critical Minerals Conference. The next presentation is from First Phosphate. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides, and you can view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome John Passalacqua. He's the Chief Executive Officer and Director of First Phosphate, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol FRSPF and on the CSE under the symbol PHOS. Welcome back, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. So everybody, I'll just start off with just a little brief description about the company. We're First Phosphate. We are igneous phosphate, different from sedimentary phosphate. We are igneous phosphate specifically and exclusively for the LFP battery industry. So we're not interested in fertilizer, and we're not interested in sedimentary phosphate rock. We're just interested in high purity igneous rock that we have at our Béjean-Lamarche property, Quebec, for producing a lot of purified phosphoric acid that goes into this, right? The batteries, the LFP batteries. These are the first that were made with full North American critical minerals, including our phosphate from the Béjean-Lamarche property. Okay. So as we move on here, we start looking at LFP. Well, what is the LFP battery industry? Well, the LFP battery industry is now, almost 3/4 of all the batteries produced in the world. Most of those batteries are made in Asia. As you can see, there's a very big growth trajectory to LFP. LFP has been around for 25 years. Believe it or not, it was first invented in North America in 2001, and by 2003, it was only being produced in China. So it's been around for 25 years. It's grown very, very quickly, and it continues to grow, and it's seen to be, that technology of the future. And it's seen to be the technology of mass adoption because it is it's very versatile technology. And, a surprising fact is that, LFP batteries, only 7% of LFP battery is electric vehicles. The other big sectors are obviously, commercial transportation, public transportation. You have small vehicles, wheelchairs, skateboards, and then you've got telecom industry as well. You've got a small defense component as well that's growing. But the big tranche that everyone's really looking towards is this one here. Everyone's interested in, battery energy storage, AI, automation, robotics, and data centers. These are the batteries that, make all of that possible. And, the biggest thing that came out recently was there was a tweet by Elon Musk a few months ago where he said, if only the US or, any, Western country for that matter could improve their energy grid, we'd be able to double the energy output. And the reason is that these batteries here, these big battery parks that are starting to go up all over the world, some of them can be, a kilometer by a kilometer. Some have been up to 5 kilometers by 5 kilometers. And they're all made of LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate batteries. What they do is they store the energy that comes off of any form of power that's already existing, traditional or renewable, during the off-peak hours, and then it redistributes it to the grid during the peak hours, right? So basically, it allows you to better distribute your grid. Big problem is, as everybody knows, electrons have ADHD. What does that mean? Is they can't sit still. So if you can't trap an electron, you lose it. So in order to trap it for when you can use it later, you've got to trap it inside of a battery, right? And that's what these battery energy storage systems are for. This is the really big ones that you'll find, big community or big, electrical service companies that are building them. But it could be something as small as in your home, a battery wall, or if you're at the cabin, you've got, you don't have generators anymore that burn diesel, but you might have a battery that, stores energy that you then bring up with you. So it's very clean. It's very compact, and the lithium iron phosphate battery is what's taken off for all of these very small to very large battery storage needs. And this is why the lithium market has gotten really, really excited. And if you look at the lithium ETF, it's up 100% or more. It's all over energy storage, right? Massive expansion of the energy storage that's going on. But if you're in the lithium market, you've got over 150 companies worldwide to choose from on their different exchanges in the lithium space. The other component of LFP, obviously, LF is the iron. There are companies worldwide that put iron sort or another. But what do we have in the P, right? What do we have in the phosphate, and how important is the phosphate? Well, in the phosphate industry, you've only got a handful of companies that trade on public markets across the world, and they're mostly, if not all of them, are dedicated to phosphate for agriculture. First Phosphate is the only company, as far as we know, that's 100% fully and exclusively dedicated to high purity phosphate for the LFP battery industry. We have no interest in the fertilizer industry. And why is that? Well, here's the real crux of the matter. If you come into here, right, LFP battery requires a large amount of high purity phosphate. How much? It's staggering. It's 60%. 60% of the cathode of the battery, right, is phosphate. Cathode of the battery being this area right here, right? 60% of that is phosphate. Only 4% of it is lithium. Everyone's chasing the lithium stocks all day long because, of LFP battery and because of the need for lithium. But is anybody thinking about the other requirements? Well, we know that iron is out there. Iron is scarce in its powder format, but it is available. We know where we could find the lithium, right? There's 150 companies out there in worldwide markets that are looking to bring it to market or have brought it to market. But look at phosphate, right? This is why First Phosphate has gotten into this section here, really the phosphate, the high purity phosphate that's going to be required for LFP battery, without which, the lithium remains trapped. So it's really time, I think, that we start giving a really, really hard look at phosphate for electrification. And that's what we've decided to dedicate ourselves to here at First Phosphate. And this is really seconded if you look at, some of the research out there. This is Benchmark Minerals here on the left. When they talk about the energy transition, they have copper as a number one element. But look at what they have as number two: purified phosphoric acid. It even beats nickel. It even beats graphite. It even beats lithium, and it beats manganese and cobalt. It's really the purified phosphoric acid. It's the second most important element for electrification for the energy transition. And they say we need 33 new purified phosphoric acid plants by 2030 to meet the demands in the West. And to date, we've only been able to create 5 of these purified phosphoric acid plants in the last 70 years. And all of that production, which you kind of see down here, this is the demand actually, all goes to traditional uses for purified phosphoric acid, things like Coca-Cola, carbonated beverages, toothpaste, Colgate, fire extinguishers, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, water treatment industry, baked goods, the food industry. And then look at this line here. This line here is a supply of purified phosphoric acid. If you see, it's flat. Now, why is that flat? As you can see already, the traditional uses for purified phosphoric acid are going to outstrip are going to outstrip supply. And why is that? Why is it so flat? Well, the reason supply is flat is because they're making the purified phosphoric acid on the back of the fertilizer industry, where they can only skim, the top 10, 20% of that and make purified phosphoric acid for it. And a lot of them don't even make it of the fertilizer producers because they're so busy and focused on fertilizer. And, quite frankly, the PPA, purified phosphoric acid market, is a very different market. But here you got, CRU Group saying that, we're going to need double the amount of purified phosphoric acid to fill this gap going up to, 2045. But then you've got Benchmark Mineral that really sees this more as something kind of going up like this. Let's agree to differ. But, the one thing we can't differ on is the fact that a lot of purified phosphoric acid is going to be required for the energy transition, especially for LFP battery, and isn't it going to be somewhere needed to get it? And we certainly cannot get it off of the sedimentary phosphate rock basin because it's limited, right? The supply is limited. So, what can we do? Like, what is the secret? How do we make a lot of purified phosphoric acid? We know it's not sedimentary rock, right? Because sedimentary rock is impure. It creates big gypsum slag piles when we purify it, and only a small portion can go into LFP battery. So, the secret is really igneous phosphate rock, which is very rare. Igneous phosphate rock, almost 95 to 100% of it converts directly into purified phosphoric acid for the LFP battery industry, right? So this is the secret. How do we increase the amount of high purity battery grade phosphoric acid for the LFP battery industry without having to touch the agricultural world? Well, it's igneous phosphate rock, and that's why First Phosphates is focused right here, in igneous phosphate rock. We're not interested at all with sedimentary phosphate rock, and we're not interested at all in fertilizer. And the way to do this, obviously, is with the igneous rock. Okay, so let's talk about igneous rock. Well, igneous rock is rare, right? It's only found in really 3 parts of the world. It's these kind of blue areas, right? Northern Europe, Southern Africa, Brazil, and then we've got a really special area here in Quebec, which I'll talk about. So let's talk about Africa and Brazil. They've got this igneous rock, but it's got a lot of impurities in it, and it's hard to separate from the rare earths. So basically, in Brazil, it's used in the fertilizer industry because they're a breadbasket, and in Africa, a lot of it is unexploited to date. These are both two carbonatite resources, igneous carbonatites, and up here in Russia, there's igneous carbonatite as well. They're actually able to separate it, and they're able to sell it on foreign markets, but obviously now they're behind the sanctions. Now let's talk about Saint Jean, Quebec. There's an igneous rock, but it's not a carbonatite. It's an igneous anorthosite. And the igneous anorthosite is so pure, we're able to separate it very easily. We're able to pull out the magnetite, the ilmenite, and then separate it from the silicates by using standard flotation, solventless process, fully environmentally friendly. And we're able to recover 92% of it at this, almost 41% P2O5 grade. P2O5 being the measure of purity of phosphate. As you can see, we come up to, one of the highest grades here in the world. So, because of that, the purity is so high. There's no contamination in the production, and also it can be converted into purified phosphoric acid to a very large degree. Almost 95% plus goes into making purified phosphoric acid. So that's the secret. It's really the purity of the igneous rock. And you can see all the other basins here of sedimentary rock, which is, the red dots. That's 95% of the world's phosphate, and that's still good for fertilizer, but it doesn't have the high purity to make, specifically purified phosphoric acid, only purified phosphoric acid for the LFP battery industry, which is what we need. Okay, so let's talk about the resource now. So this is an open pit mine. It's at surface. It's 2.5 kilometers wide this way, long, and then it's 300 meters wide. And we've only gone down 300 meters, even though we're fully open at depth, especially in our very high grade zone. We've done 30 meters of drilling on this project so far. We've had a mineral resource estimate on it. We've had a preliminary economic assessment done on it. We're currently drilling our 30,000 meters here, which should be done by the end of April. And that will give us a full resource and a full model to be able to make a decision as to whether to begin our feasibility study or not. If we do, the feasibility study will be ready by the end of 2026, which is what we've projected to the market. In the meantime, we've taken this resource with our full metallurgy. We've been able to make purified phosphoric acid. We've done this together with the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid, Prayon, out of Belgium. So we know that the resource does translate directly into purified phosphoric acid and at scale. This resource here, to give you an example, could probably produce about 350 gigawatt hours of LFP batteries for the next 25 to 50 years. And this is enough to power half of the fleet of new vehicles in North America for the next 25 to 50 years. That's a massive resource, but even there, it doesn't even get to 5 to 10% of the phosphate requirements for LFP. We have a net present value of 2.1 billion on the property, IRR of 37%, payback period of 2.9 years, and that was calculated when phosphate prices were quite low a few years back. So when we update here on our feasibility study, we should be getting into much more specific numbers. We're sitting right here in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region of Quebec. It's a very special area. It's Quebec's 5th largest population basin. It's 2.5 hours north of Quebec City. Okay, Quebec City being 2.5 hours west of Montreal, and it's a very populated region. And the reason it's populated is because Rio Tinto has been producing aluminum up there for the past 100 years. There's also a big forestry industry. So we've got a lot of great equipment suppliers. And we've also got a lot of great industrial workforce. The mine site is here, Bégin-La-Marche. It's 70 kilometers driving distance from the deep sea port of Saguenay. This is the deep sea port of Saguenay that's got access to our off-takers over in Europe. We've already got 25% of our offtake from the mine fully banked to Europe, and we've also got a prepayment on that. So it's a very, very serious offtake, and the offtaker is looking for us to get it to production by 2029. 25%, if not more, is going to be going over to Europe, and then the rest of the offtake, we've got got tremendous amount of interest on the offtake, but we're keeping that for ourselves to make purified phosphoric acid, to make phosphoric acid here at the Port of Saguenay. And we're going to be using the technology for making phosphoric acid from the Belgium entity Prayon, the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid. So we've licensed that technology to make phosphoric acid here at the Port of Saguenay. And then that phosphoric acid, can be shipped either via ship, or it can also go via rail to wherever it needs to go. About 35% of that production is already definitively and bankably off-taken. And the rest of it will stay back to make LFP cathode active material. Okay, so I went over this a little bit. We're going to be extracting and concentrating. That's at Bégin-Lamarche mine site. And then after that, at the Port of Saguenay here, we'll be making the phosphoric acid and then the LFP cathode active material. And the LFP cathode active material then goes into batteries such as this, as I'm showing on the screen, which we've made using full North American critical minerals. And then those batteries then go into battery packs, and then they go into the energy storage systems that we already talked about. Okay, this is something the company is extremely proud of. Okay, the company has been able to make the first LFP battery cells in North America using North American critical minerals, and we've done that in 6 steps. Okay, and all of these steps, just so you know, they're all commercial. They're fully commercially viable. There's no R&D involved. We do not believe in R&D. We believe in commercial processes that can be scaled up. So what we've done is we've taken the phosphate rock from the Bégin-Lamarche property here. We've then processed that into high purity igneous phosphate concentrate using very solventless extraction methods, environmentally clean methods, recycling gypsum. And then we've been able to make purified phosphoric acid with the help of Prayon, the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid. That's tested. And then with the help of GK and Höganäs, the world's largest atomizer of steel powder, we were able to make iron phosphate precursor. And then with a company out of Nevada, Century Lithium, we've been able to make LFP cathode active material. Okay. And then we took the graphite from Nouveau Monde Graphite in Montreal, and together with the technology of Ultium, we produced these. The first LFP battery cells made in North America using full North American critical minerals. Now, why is this really important? This is really important because this is a supply chain that has been threatened by China, right? When President Xi and President Trump had their little spat back in November, I think President Xi came back and said, you know what, we're going to threaten to cut off rare earths, microchip technology, but also LFP battery technology. And guess what? That's a threat, but guess what? We can make it here in North America. First Phosphate has been able to do this in 6 easy steps. And the most important thing is we took these batteries and we cycled them 2,000 times, which means we've charged them and discharged them 2,000 times, which is a standard commercial test, and they passed, meaning that all the critical minerals that went into this process and all the processes that went into these processes are now validated and the batteries check. That's so important. And this is the mini landing of the LFP battery supply chain in North America, can be scaled up at any time. We've got major players at the table. We talked about Prayon, American Battery Factory for offtake on the LFP CAM in the United States. Export-Import Bank of the United States is at the table for funding up to 170 million once we build out the mine site. A division of Glencore is for sulfuric acid that we need in the process of making the phosphate. Our local indigenous group is a collaborator and also looking at financing. Government of Quebec has expressed interest in financing. We talked about GK and Höganäs on the iron side, and then a number of other, very, very good companies here and locally and internationally willing to help us to build this out, all partners in the process. We're a management team that meets and beats milestones. We've been at it since 2022. We've really built very quietly while the whole market, was really in a bad shape around electrification. And now we've built something very strong. Like I said, we're finishing off our drilling at the Bégin-Lamarche property. Completing our pre-feasibility is complete internally, and we're moving to the full feasibility study by the end of this year. Permits by early 2027 and an operating mine by 2029. And I'll just point out that, right now the company trades at about 6% of the value, the net present value of its preliminary economic assessment. And we're moving into the feasibility study, which would be a major milestone. And we've got all the funding to do it. We've got about $24 million in the bank to get us right through the feasibility study and a good way through the permitting, if not fully through the permitting. We've got a very tight share structure, and we're debt free. That's really important to us, is to remain debt free. Almost all of our warrants are exercised. There's very few warrants remaining. There's some in coming at the end of April. They're a little bit higher than the market price. They're about $1.25 right now. We've got a good market capitalization. We've got very good management ownership in here. Still 20% of the company. Management's put in about $4 million of our own money. Management and board take almost 50% of their compensation in stock. Myself as CEO and many of the board members take all of our compensation in stock in RSUs. And that's just something we did in the beginning to be able to build a company when it was tougher to raise capital. But it's something we maintain because we want to keep the funds focused on the business, and also we want to expand our percentage holdings in First Phosphate as much as possible. We've got a great group here of 40% is of high net worth institutions, family offices, associates, friends and family. Our local Indigenous group is also involved, small. And then we've got a public float of about 40% that floats around in the market back and forth. But very proud of what we've been able to do. We've got fully funded through to the feasibility study and the permitting, and debt free. This is very rare in a lot of these companies. By the time they get the feasibility, they've got lots of debt, convertible debentures. A lot of other things have happened, but we stayed very, very careful to keep this really clean, avoid any of the toxic capital. We've raised $50 million on our own. There's been no underwriters involved. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of that because we've been able to handpick and choose the investors that came into First Phosphate, and we treat this like one big family, if you will, big family of investors. Okay, so our board and management. Well, what we really like about our strategy is we're very good business leaders, I believe, but we're very strong in mining, and we're also very strong in technology. And we bring it all together, right? So that you can get from mine to market. That's what everyone's talking about nowadays, right? Mine to market. So mine to market is really, you've got to know mining, and you've got to know how to get to market, which is technology. So my background is in technology. We've got a lot of people on the board that know technology, that know mining, and that know business, and that's our real strength. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'm just going to pass it on to questions. But thank you very much, John, for having me as usual. I really appreciate the audience. And John, maybe I'll pass it back to you, or should I do some questions right away? John, are you there? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just got a message from John. I'm going to do the questions. Okay, so I've got a few questions here in the queue. The first question I got is, with regards to offtake, what proportion of expected phase one production is now covered by binding versus non-binding offtake agreements? Okay, thank you for that, John. John, so I want to be very clear on this. There is no shortage of this of demand for this material, the phosphate concentrate at the mine. We have offtaken 25% of that. We've offtaken it definitively, bankably, and we've also received a prepayment on it. And that's all that we're willing to offtake at the moment. Why? Because we want to keep back at least 60% for ourselves. That is then going to be used in our own phosphoric acid plant, where we will be doing the value add. And if anything happened where we decided not to do the value add, we could sell that offtake very quickly. We have the highest purity phosphate rock in the world. It's in very short demand. It's required to make purified phosphoric acid for the battery transition. So we don't want to encumber the company too early with offtake. And I'll also say that on that offtake that we have, which is about 25% of our production, that floats at market. There's no price ceiling. There's no price floor on it. It just floats with market. It's just perfect. It's enough to get us banked, but we don't want to be giving away the rest of the offtake so early because, again, 60% should be used in our own future processes. Now, as far as the second transformation into phosphoric acid, our offtake there is also definitive and bankable. It's about around 30% of the entire production, so 70% remains back for us. That too, is very in very high demand, so we want to keep that for ourselves, and that's what we're doing. Off-takers is non-binding. So good question, John. On the mine side, 25% is off-taken. That's all we want to do. It's definitive, it's bankable, and it's fully binding, and it's been prepaid. On the phosphoric acid side, about 30% is definitive, it's bankable, and that's about all we want to we want to give away at the moment. And then on the LFP cathode active material side, it's all non-binding, and we're moving forward with that slowly. But the interest is there. Again, there's going to be no shortage of demand for LFP cathode active material moving forward. Okay, John, thanks for that great question. And I'll just move on here. I got a question from Alain. Is this a camp job, local town holding 75 workers? Okay, it's a really good question. I think what he's referring to is here, where we are currently doing the drilling. I'm just showing the slide here on the main stage. So we're just drilling. We're doing our last 30 meters of drilling here at 30,000 meters of drilling at Beja and La Marche. Camp, and that's one of the main strategic advantages of First Phosphate. And I'm glad that you asked the question, Alain, because it's important. Because of that, most of the workforce is coming from the neighboring towns here. So there's no need for a camp, and the drilling's moving very, very quickly. We're able to do 30,000 meters of drilling in 3-4 months, not more than that. And so there is no real camp. There's like small bedroom, but really all the workforce can easily come from 30-40 kilometers away, which is the real strength of the deposit and of the company. Okay, next question. The next question. Hi there, can you talk about the local support and manpower? Yes, we have a lot of local support, obviously supported by the municipalities, supported by chambers of commerce, the suppliers guilds, the local indigenous communities, very, very good local support. You have to remember our project is a smaller size project to medium. We don't need to pull out all that much phosphate. We're pulling out a lot of it, but it's all going to LFP battery. It's not going to fertilizer. So we're very focused on LFP battery. It allows us to have, a really human-sized kind of project. It's very well supported. You also have to remember that because of the aluminum tariffs and the forestry industry tariffs, there's a lot of hurt right now in the Saguenay region. So they're really looking for new clean industry to come in and take the place of some of the jobs that have been lost. And that's where First Phosphate fits in. Okay, I'm looking into another couple questions. Mineralization is open at depth at 250 meters. How much additional drilling is planned in 2026, and what are your internal targets for resource expansion? Okay, good question, Josh. So right now, the most of the drilling that's happening is to really be able to bring the resource into definition. So we were at inferred and indicated. Now we're moving from up to indicated and measured. So we're drilling at 50-meter centers as opposed to 100, and that's really to define the resource so that we can begin the feasibility study. We are doing a little bit at depth, and we are doing a little bit into some new zones. Some results on that will be out as well. But generally, this was really just to define the resource so that we can move into that feasibility study. Should all of that go well, and should the board decide to make that decision. So that's what we're doing right now. We're drilling really at for definition. Okay. Will this feasibility study potentially at the end of 2025 be a bankable study? Yeah, so that's Brian. Yeah, of course. That's what we're going for. We're going for a bankable feasibility study here by the end of 2026. We've indicated to the market December. It's a very, very tight time frame, but we're comfortable that we can do it. We've got everyone hired to do it. We're fully cashed up. We've got our office in Quebec City. They're working day and night on it. All the consultants and everybody. And so, that's the nice thing about having raised the money last year to do this. We don't have to stop and start and go. And we've been able to give contracts to everybody. So everyone's lined up. We just have to perform. We really have to execute. That's what we're focused on. On the offtake side, this is from Brian. On the offtake side, have discussions been had with other partners for the balance of the annual production that is already covered by the current offtake? Okay, so again on that, Brian, like I said, yes, there's all kinds of discussions, but again, we're not interested at this point in giving away further offtake. We do not want to encumber the company. There's just no shortage of demand for it. So why not wait until we're ready? We can get the best price for it. And again, we'd like to use that ourselves. We'd like to internalize as much of this production ourselves. That was the point of the company, to create the vertically integrated LFP battery supply chain for North America. So the more that we give away, the less we can integrate vertically, and that defeats our purpose. So we gave away just a little bit to be able to get some bankability, but not too much. 75% pretty much of all our production still remains with us. One question here. Alain says, why did Gilles sell his stock? Okay, so Gilles is our geologist, and Gilles, like a number of others in the company, had options in the company. So what they did is they did a cashless exercise of options. What that means is that you sell a portion of your stock in order to be able to exercise the rest of it. So net net, they come out holding a lot more stock than what they started with. So if you look very closely on those filings on SEDI, you'll see that these were cashless exercises of options. And it's actually kind of a bullish sign because they're actually adding to their holdings. They just sold just enough to be able to exercise the options and to hold the rest of the stock. Okay. Likely not, given it is igneous rock, but do you expect any uranium byproducts? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This was from Brian as well. So igneous phosphate rock is clean. It has no cadmium, uranium, or thorium in it. Very low, very low, minute, like not even traceable element portions of it. It's not like sedimentary rock, which is full of cadmium, uranium, and thorium, and that's a big problem in there. So yeah, that's the beauty of igneous rock. It processes clean, it separates clean, and very good environmentally with respect to the process for sedimentary rock. Okay, that was great. Lots of great questions there. Thank you, everybody, very much. John, thank you for having us today, and I look forward to further engagement with your audience as time permits and as things come up. Thank you. Please remember, in first phosphate, LFP, 60% of the cathode of the battery is phosphate. We're the only company, as far as we know, fully and exclusively dedicated to phosphate for the LFP battery industry. We do not have any interest in fertilizer. Thank you very much.